Hello, welcome to another edition of Between Two Ferns, as you can see. I am your host, Mark Griffith. This is an actual portrait of me that does hang in an Amazon building. I will be interviewing Pete Sauerborn today, who is the VP, leads North American recruitment and development for selling on Amazon. Nice to have you, Pete.
Thank you.
So first question I want to ask you is, can you describe the Amazon marketplace and how it works for those who are not familiar?
Yeah. So actually, before I do, just show of hands, who's the seller on the marketplace today? Wow. Okay. So no explanation needed. So what's the next question? No.
Okay.
Well, let me just say a couple things. So the as you know, marketplace is where we allow third-party sellers to list and sell alongside Amazon Retail. So you can think of it as retail is like the 1P model, the first party, and the marketplace is the third-party model, which basically means the seller, can set the price and is the seller of record. And this business model, I think years ago when Jeff Bezos had this idea, it was very controversial at Amazon. Can you imagine a big retail business and we invite all of our competitors effectively to sell right alongside of us? And so it was very controversial. It's turned out to be an extraordinarily powerful business model for a number of different reasons. And the way I like to think of it is, the sellers like yourselves love the opportunity to come on and access the Amazon customer, increase traffic, increase sales, etc. The customers love the expansive selection and low prices that the variety of sellers bring. And from an Amazon point of view, we love the way that it allows us to scale really in a very kind of self-service way. So it's really love. It's a love fest. So Marketplace has been great. Jeff has actually, if you look at his letter to the shareholders for the last couple of years, he's mentioned the Amazon Marketplace as one of the top 3 business model innovations that Amazon has had. And it's because of sellers, like yourselves, who are basically fueling this business model. And we think it's a great kind of flywheel and a win-win-win. The other thing I'll say about the marketplace is it's a global marketplace. We currently operate websites in 11 countries and growing. So it allows many small businesses to scale in ways that they probably could never have considered, without that sort of infrastructure. And the other thing I'll say about the marketplace is, how many of you are in FBA? Let me ask that. Yeah. Okay. So you all know. So access to the prime customers. The logistics with FBA, et cetera, that's kind of the marketplace. So,
great, yeah. Thank you. I'm also curious if you'd share a couple of examples of sellers on Amazon that inspire you.
It's funny, one of the things I love the most about my job, the way Amazon organizes, a lot of the teams are organized by, let's call it by products, or we have these really big platforms, so they're organized by features, like I own the merchandising feature set or whatever. My job is cool because I own the recruitment and development of sellers holistically, so I get to talk to sellers about all the things that they care about and help them be successful on the marketplace. So it's kind of a holistic view. And one thing I love about it is every time I meet a seller, my favorite question is just like, what's your story, And the stories that I hear inspire me. Every single one of them inspires me, to be honest. I think the fact is, we've got, I think over 2 million sellers worldwide. Every type of business and every type of business model really that you could imagine, from really big resellers who are just good at sourcing products and reselling, and brand owners selling direct to consumer. We have all these stories of business transformations. So, a few of them that resonate with me. One I'll just mention is this young man graduated from MIT, and his parents were immigrants in New Jersey, and they owned a vacuum cleaner store. It's like, it's right up there with sewing machine store in terms of physical brick and mortar decline. And so they were struggling, but they struggled. They put him through school. They put him to MIT. He comes out of school, and they're barely holding on to this business. And so he looked at the business and said, gosh, you have these great sourcing relationships. You have all these really great products and brands. And he took their business and just brought them onto Amazon. So they kept their brick and mortar, but they added the Amazon channel, FBA, and the business increased like 10x. And so, that's an example of, I call it a business transformation and kind of that next generation, and it's super exciting, and it's great to see that family now that was struggling, having a really great livelihood and kind of reinventing the way they do business and kind of leveraging the assets and experience they have in that core business that they own for years and then bringing it online. So it's really cool. We have others, like this one that inspires me as well is this guy was an engineer at Google, and his wife was experimenting with selling clothing on Amazon, kind of small. But he a self-proclaimed kind of geek, and he got a hold of the Amazon APIs and started to learn, what's it like selling on Amazon, what are all the tools, and how can I integrate with APIs? And so he learned really how to sell. And then he said, one day I was at work and I needed a laptop replacement battery for my HP laptop. And what he described was I saw like this OEM battery from HP that was super expensive because they make a lot of margin on these kind of replacement parts and so forth. And then a bunch of stuff that I wasn't quite sure if I could trust it. And I saw that and I said, you know what, I bet I could come up with a battery that's even higher quality than the one that HP is selling, but for half the price. And that was his first product. And now he's got a business that's over $200 million in revenue. He sells in 11 countries. He's filing for an IPO, and he's extended into all sorts of other product lines, including home electronics. He's got this really great robotic vacuum cleaner. And so as an example of an engineer kind of working for a salary and then becoming an entrepreneur. And what I love about that story is he built this great business. The customers in that case, our end customer got a battery in that example that was half the price but higher quality. So think of the value the customer got. And again, it's kind of a win-win-win. So these are super exciting stories. We've got there's one guy. He's an Army Ranger. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he's a West Point graduate. He came back after Afghanistan and he said, I wasn't quite right, and I couldn't quite figure out how to get reintegrated back, after my tours of duty. And then he got inspired to create this cause-based business where he was going to manufacture products in war-torn parts of the world, including Afghanistan and other places. And then sell those on direct-to-consumer and as well as on Amazon, and then use that as a way to help these countries to kind of redevelop. And so he did a TED Talk, and super interesting guy. He's got this really great business selling in Amazon exclusives, but also on his own website. And so there's so many. Every story I get excited. I could keep going on and on all day, and I'm sure I could spend all day talking to you and asking you about your businesses and hear similar kind of stories. So,
yeah, thanks for sharing those, Pete. I think that's a great example of how Amazon's self-service capabilities allow people to disrupt and change and transform themselves in a way that they wouldn't have access to otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The capital you would need, the access you would need to be able to do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Next question I'd like to ask you is, why would a company want to sell on Marketplace? What are the biggest benefits to them?
I'd say there's probably, I try to group it into three main things. And the first one is about customers. And really it's one, it's access to, like 300 million customers and lots of traffic. But it's also customer trust, right? So it's not only we have lots of traffic, we also have lots of traffic that trust this sort of ecosystem that we have in our partnership with our sellers. So that's probably the first, reason. The second one I think is really important, and that is logistics. And I'll add to that global logistics. So this is really allowing sellers to outsource we'll call it the operations and things that are hard to scale. So they can run effectively a 7x24 business and actually sleep, and go on vacation sometimes. But the global part of that is also great because, not only is it 7x24, but it's in 11 countries. The customers who buy are more in like 180 countries, but the actual websites are in 11 countries. And so, having your logistics outsourced, and having the ability to sell globally and still be kind of a small company is another good reason why people sell on the marketplace. And I think the third one, if I had to pick one, would be, it really allows them to scale, really to have world-class e-commerce without having to build or invest in all the software development to have those features. So literally every day, in fact, every minute of the day, we're releasing new software. We've got teams, thousands of engineers who are constantly iterating and building features for Amazon.com and for Seller Central and for FBA. And so we're constantly iterating on making improvements. And as a seller, you get to basically have access to all that right away. Whereas if you're doing your own website, it may take more effort and it may be harder to scale.
All right, great, thank you. What about if you have your own website, though, that you've already built? Can that coexist with selling on Amazon? How does that work?
Yeah. I think, in fact, not only would I say it coexists, but I think, if I was to rewind, I've been in Amazon for about 7 years. Let me just give you some context, come back to your question, because I think it's a great question. So, when I joined here about 7 years ago, the marketplace was like this tiny $11 billion business. And I kind of joke when I say tiny, it was massive business, but now it's about $120 billion business. And in terms of our GMS, our top line revenue that sellers collect effectively. And so it's a very, very big business. And at that time, the mental model for the marketplace was really, Amazon Retail is the one that sells these, brands direct, and then the sellers are mostly resellers of established brands. So if you could imagine, especially in the books, this is true, the publisher of the book is the vendor to retail, and the seller is basically a book reseller. And fast forward, as things evolved, we kind of expanded into hard lines and electronics, and then we expanded more into soft lines and grocery, and we kind of continue to build out more categories. But also, the supply chain is really evolving at the same time, and more entrepreneurs are identifying new segments and new products, and basically what I would call selling brands direct to consumer on Amazon, as opposed, so now we wake up one day over this period of time and the business has gotten very big, and it still has a lot of resellers in it, and that's a big kind of core part of this, but there's also now a lot of what I'll call brand owners, who've innovated and invented new products like this one I was talking about, Anchor, with the electronics, and, the batteries and accessories. And so once you get into this, now I have a brand, it's a different story, and many of you probably do, and I know you must, if you're here for the payments discussion, you have your own website, you have your own web presence. So the question is, how does your we'll call it off Amazon, your website, coexist with your presence on Amazon, and what does that relationship look like? And I think it is evolving. What I would say, I think if we were 5 years ago, the Amazon sales rep would be telling you, well, it's another channel you can grow your business. Like if you have X, it can become Y, But I think that's a very simplistic way to think about it. I think another way to think about it is it's part of your customer's journey, and it's part of your complete ecosystem to get your brand out there, to tell your story, to help your customer kind of move through the journey to discover your products, to understand your value proposition, and to purchase from you and become loyal to you and your company and your brand. And so I would encourage you to think about Amazon as part of that journey. The data, we have some data from some third parties that look at this, and they say that about 28% of the customers' journeys begin on a search engine, aka Google or something like that, and 55% of the purchase journeys begin on Amazon. And so if you have a strategy for Google search engine optimization, if you have a strategy for social media, what's your strategy for Amazon? And the days of just listing your products and setting sharp prices and putting them in FBA are, that might not just be enough. I think it's also about how is it that you want to tell your story on Amazon? How are you going to advertise? How are you going to make sure that you're tapping into the traffic and protecting your message, your story, your image, and so forth. So I think, and we all know the customer journeys are not linear. It's not like they kind of go one place and they search and they buy. They go many places and they think about it and they discover things in social media and they search in Google and they watch YouTube and they, whatever, they go to Instagram and so forth. And they also check on Amazon, and so I think, that's all part of this. And I think many brands have actually inspired me in the way that they think about both of these. But some haven't quite gotten there yet. So I would encourage you all to explore that and think about it that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So what are some of the challenges? Everything can't be easy. So what are some of the challenges with selling on Amazon? Some things they have to be aware of.
Yeah, well, okay, I say probably the biggest challenge that I hear from when I talk to sellers is, we hold a very high bar for operational sort of efficiency, and we do it to protect our customers, right? So things like, if you're not an FBA, things like your fulfillment and your customer service are super important. And we have very, very low tolerance for sort of poor performance. And sometimes it can be frustrating as a seller because you get dinged by Amazon. We don't do it because we want to be mean. We do it only because we want to, improve the customer experience. And so I think, it's a step up in terms of like being operationally excellent. And so you have to sort of embrace that, and to be effective. And it can be challenging. I'd say another thing I hear a lot is listings are challenging. Getting my products listed in the format that Amazon requires is complicated, it's confusing, and we hear a lot about that. And we know it's challenging. We want to make it easier. And we'll continue to iterate to try to make it easier. At the same time, it's inherently a bit of a different business model than others have, meaning that the way we work is we have an ASIN, and then we have a bunch of offers that can match to those ASINs. And so the idea of basically creating a really good ASIN, and then we have two problems that come with that. One is we want to match things correctly, so we could have a problem which we would call an incorrect match. That's bad for customers. And the other problem that comes with it is what we'll call a duplicate. Same ASIN, but it shows up as two different ASINs. And that's also bad for customers. And then there's a bunch of variations of problems in terms of like poor quality images and descriptions and all these things. So yes, listings is challenging. We kind of always want to make it better, but it's challenging for a reason because we don't want duplicates. We don't want incorrect matches. We want to make sure the ASINs are really great because it's good for customers. And so we're always trying to find the balance between making it easy for the seller and making it great for the customer. But that does make it a bit challenging. I'd say the third thing about that I think is challenging, it's a mental shift because to be successful on Amazon, you kind of have to go all in. And I don't mean that you have to do only Amazon, of course, but what I mean by that is it's its own beast. It's kind of its own animal. And if companies that think of it as, hey, I've got all these marketing channels where I drive traffic, and that's one more channel, they usually get it wrong, And the ones that think about it like, hey, I'm going to go all in and really figure out this ecosystem and understand it, those are the ones that seem to get it right. But it does take an investment and kind of a shift in the mental model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Along those same lines, then, what are some of the best practices that sellers can follow to be successful selling on Amazon?
Well, there's some. We talk about our flywheel. So I'll hit the basics, right? But the basics are, it starts with selection. So the one thing a lot of sellers ask are, what should I list? And usually our answer is like everything. And it's sort of been tried and tested over time. You never quite know. And so usually getting all your listings up and optimized on Amazon is the first step. So it's get your selection up. Pricing is super important. So you need to price very sharp. We've built some tools, and there's other third-party tools out there that help you automatically reprice, but you got to be price competitive. You've got to tap into the prime customer, right? It's almost like nowadays you can't really be successful unless you're Prime. To do that, that means you need to be an FBA or a new opportunity called MFN Prime, which is you do the fulfillment, but we give you the Prime badge if you meet a certain bar. So I think those, get all your selection up, make sure you price very sharp, use these pricing tools where appropriate, ensure your offers are Prime. And now I would also say advertise, sponsored products. And again, this is a little bit, you got to go in because you got to get in there, you got to run these campaigns and then optimize. And it does take some time. It's like, it's like Google search. It takes a bit of a science to work on it. We do have a lot of tools. We're continuing to introduce more, but advertising is increasingly important to be successful. I've got more global selling. Once you've nailed, in this case, we'll say the U.S., which is our biggest market, you really want to think about how can you expand globally. It's a great opportunity. We continue to, it's still a bit challenging, but we continue to try to make it easier. So we've got, in the US, we have what we'll call the Pan North America. So you have Canada and Mexico, unified account. In EU, in Europe, we're in 5 countries today. We're adding more countries, but we also have ways that you can sort of inbound and then sort of fill across the Pan-European region. Japan is a great marketplace. In China, we're increasingly investing in China. There's a number of ways that you can participate there. India is growing very quickly. So really take advantage of that because it's a unique thing that you can have a relatively small company and sell across the world.
Yeah. I think it's one of the great things that Amazon does is we figure out how to do really hard things and then we enable and let other people take advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to run the global selling program at Amazon, and I look forward to the day that I could stand on a ship carrying Amazon goods and do the Titanic pose.
The king of the world.
Exactly. So we are helping sellers put containers on boats and move them across the ocean from manufactured in China to locations in Europe and America. It's an exciting thing. What are some of the new innovations on Marketplace that you're most excited about?
Oh, there's so many. One I'll talk about is there's a theme about brands, as I mentioned, brand selling to direct to consumer. And we're doing so much more with regards to self-service lightning deals in Seller Central. So you can kind of opt into these lightning deals, which gets you more traffic and attention. We've got more and more advertising. Sponsored products has been really successful. And we're going to release another series of, we'll call them self-service performance advertising tools for sellers to get the message out and get exposure for their products. As I mentioned before, Prime is super important, and FBA is kind of the core of what our Prime is for sellers. But we also now have MFN Prime. So there are certain reasons in various products where it doesn't make sense to put it in FBA, but you have the capabilities to meet a great customer promise, and you get that Prime badge for it. So MFN Prime. Global selling, I mentioned, there's a number of innovations around global selling, which are super exciting. I know I'm going to forget some things, but those are...
What about brand registry?
Oh yeah, let's talk about brand. Yeah, so not only...
They were here, I think, at the booth, but
yeah. So this is I'll call it a opportunity/challenge, And we want to do more and more to help brand owners really claim and control their brand presence on Amazon. At the same time, we want to have a self-service marketplace that's very dynamic and active, and so it's a balance, But we have this new brand registry, and the team was here. And the idea is that you come in and claim your brand, and we authenticate you that you are the owner of that brand. And with that, you get priority services to protect your brand if someone is infringing upon your rights, your legal rights. You get hierarchy with regards to how we reconcile ASINs and the detail page. It gives you access to things like rich brand content on your detail page, et cetera. So this idea that, kind of come, claim your brand, establish yourself, adopt these tools, these merchandising tools like rich brand content and lightning deals, adopt the advertising, that whole thing kind of works together, So there's that's, I would say, an exciting area and a new set of innovations we need to work on.
Okay, great. Well, we thank you very much for coming and talking to us today. Hopefully it was informative for you guys, and we look forward to seeing more.
Take some questions?
Sure, we actually have a couple minutes.
You have a couple minutes? Yeah.
If there are questions from the audience, maybe you could come stand at this mic and it will magically turn on and we'll hear your voice. We can't really see because of the lights.
I can't see any hands.
Right here.
Okay.
Fellow beard brother.
Hi.
I just want to know more about international selling, and I've been struggling to try to get into that for the last year, but it's
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot of roadblocks, as far as filling out forms and then not hearing back from anybody and not getting information.
So
if you're in the United States, you're selling, but you want to extend beyond the borders. What can you do?
Yeah, so the question was, if you're selling in the U.S. and you want to expand outside to other countries, sell globally, what can you do? So
on my website, 25% of my sales are international.
Right.
But I can't get into Amazon outside.
Do you know where international? Is it a particular region or?
It's kind of split between Europe and Asia.
Yeah. So first, I apologize. It shouldn't be that hard, but I appreciate that it is. And by the way, the other footnote for the question, if you didn't hear it, was that he said 25% of his sales on his website in the U.S. are from outside the U.S. And so, as I said, there's a couple things in Seller Central for Canada and Mexico. We have this unified account, so you should be effectively if you're registered in the U.S., you're effectively registered in Canada and Mexico, and you should be able to launch self-service that way within that region. And we have a bit of a technical challenge. So the next step, typically, what the sequence would be for a U.S.-based seller. There are a couple of different nuances here, but Canada is a little bit more established. You don't have the language concern in the same sense, so it's kind of the first step many sellers will take. Mexico is a little bit less established, and there's some translations and so forth, but it is a great opportunity. It's a ground floor, and it's like to get some of the selection from the U.S. into Mexico, even though it's still early for us, it's a great opportunity. It's very kind of entrepreneurial, and there's still a lot of white space gaps that sellers can fill and be very successful. Europe is a little bit more established and bigger, and so what a lot of U.S. sellers will do is start in the UK. And, again, it's a bit easier language and so forth. And then from the UK, we have this pan-EU, which basically allows you to inbound into one FC in Europe and then fill orders across 5 countries. And there's a number of different tools that we have. So for translations, to syndicate your listings across marketplaces, currency conversion tools, etc. So I won't say that it's all easy, but the tools are all out there. See me afterwards, please, and we'll get a sales rep to help you kind of walk you through and help you. And I'd like to understand more about what you saw or what you didn't see that makes it hard and confusing, so we can try to fix that. And yeah.
All right. Well, we are out of time,
Okay.
so you can find
after.
Pete after, and he'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah.